Hey guys, this is Steph Gilholland here presenting the RISE app for Grids 387 Interaction Design. I hope everyone's doing well considering the usual craziness that is midterms, but before we get started, I would like to say thank you for taking time out of your project routine to watch this. I hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's introduce you to RISE. Now, what exactly is RISE? RISE is a culinary resource app made exclusively for learning the art and science of making and baking breads. Regarding art, RISE will have a directory of image and/or video tutorials that will show baking enthusiasts and aspiring professionals industry-approved techniques and best practices into making breads just as good as the ones you find in a bakery. Based on your preference of skill, you can find tutorials from the very basics, starting from kneading and scoring dough, to something more advanced such as techniques in braiding or knotting. Regarding science, RISE provides a directory of recipes that the user can either search for directly or filter all the recipes based on the user's skill preference and/or type of bread base they want to use, such as yeast, wheat, or rye, to name a few. What's unique about RISE compared to its expensive, bulky, flour-dusted book counterpart is its ability to accommodate the user using a portion and/or unit conversion button on every recipe. With the conversion button, the user can adjust ingredient proportions and unit measurements that best suits their needs. The user can then save this adjusted recipe onto My Breads, which is a designated personal recipe area on the app where the user can access all their saved recipes, or when their confidence in bread baking rises, upload their very own recipes onto the app for others to enjoy. Now, an app isn't an app without its user. But what type of user might be interested in something like RISE? Let's examine 3 potential users who could utilize this app. The first user is Alan from Brighton, England. Alan is an incredibly tech-savvy individual who likes to learn new things in his spare time, frequently using skill-learning websites like Skillshare or How-To to satiate his curiosity. He's developed a deep interest in culinary arts and pursues it as a hobby. Alan's also trying to get more bang for his buck after tightening his budget to make ends meet with his bills. So he's looking into what things he can make instead of buy that doesn't require large or frequent expenses. Given that bread is a staple in most of the dishes he makes, and that he has the basic ingredients in bulk in his pantry, Alan has decided to pursue making breads. Alan himself is very scattered when looking into recipes, and gets easily distracted by the various food styles that he sees when searching on Yumly, so an app like RISE could help him keep in focus. Dana is also a baker by hobby, but her motivations for wanting to learn how to make bread differs from Alan, because Dana wants to cut down on buying store breads because there are unnecessary processed additives she doesn't want her or her daughter to consume. She prefers to she prefers to give her child healthy, organic options with ingredients she can find around the kitchen or in nature. She also wants to create good habits for her daughter, so she enjoys helping her daughter cook and bake to teach her the value of natural food. One issue Dana has is that she worries about buying expensive books on baking bread or using her work laptop with recipes on it in the kitchen counter while making breads with her daughter because, well, kids can get a little messy. With RISE, Dana can access an abundance of recipes and information in the palm of her hand and away from disastrous sticky little fingers, as well as save her or her daughter's favorite recipes to use again later. Michael is not a baker by hobby, but he is a cook by profession. He is studying culinary arts at New England Culinary Institute, and given his schooling, he's very skilled at food preparation and whatnot. He's briefly dabbled in baking classes, but given that he's not really involved in the baking program at his school, he doesn't actively bake things from scratch. This proves to be a problem when he's required to practice in the student-run kitchens, and he finds it hard to remember accurate ingredient proportions for breads and baked goods, especially when he has to mentally calculate for larger quantities, while doing 5 other things at once. With RISE, Michael would be the perfect user to utilize the search and conversion button to quickly access accurate ingredient measurements and focus more on the food and less on the math. In order to properly develop RISE, tasks need to be thought out well in advance to better understand what needs to be done by when, and especially leave time for revisions. Lots of revisions. Lots and lots of revisions. As you can see, this task visualization is broken down into phases of the app development, such as define, brand, test, refine, and the units in which those specific areas would be worked on. Branding Rise was and still is a bit of a challenge. The name itself is a play on words. Rise, spelled R-Y-E-S, are a type of bread that requires a hefty amount of time for the yeast to rise, spelled R-I-S-E, or puff, the dough before baking. But that time ultimately creates a very dense, delicious bread. Much like the bread, learning a skill requires time in order to master, but ultimately with practice, your confidence in that skill will rise, spelled R-I-S-E, to a more masterful level. The two sound exactly the same, and with the app, share a deeper meaning I felt was appropriate for the brand. The logo and general type use throughout the app requires a typeface family that can be easily legible, but provide a sort of aesthetic that matches the brand, so it would be somewhat of a reflection on the thickness and thinness of doughs. Also breads, or it would also show a boldness or a confidence that the user would feel, while also showing somewhat of a serious structure as it is a learning resource. Next, the type family proved to be a viable choice given that the thick, bold weight of Nexa Heavy to the very proper structural thin weight of Nexa Book and Thin matched the concept I was going for. Each font could be easily read at any size, which would make it practical for both phone or tablet app use. The logo, I will admit, has been my biggest challenge as of yet. There are two overall large concepts that I've decided to pursue. Concept 1 is more like the Rise name and had more abstract meaning behind it, while Concept 2 is based on being quite literal in what the app is about. Concept 1 basically was created with the idea of combining the feeling of rising of confidence and bread together. Confidence is more of an abstract feeling, so I did some mind mapping and word attributes to create visual connections with tangible things. For example, there is a general warmth or radiance about someone who is confident, and given that bread requires warmth to bake, that led to me finding things that are warm that also rise. Coincidentally, I went shopping to do some visual research on types of breads, and noticed that most artisan breads are a half-sphere shape against the wooden board, which reminded me of a rising sun against a horizon line. So from that, I played with that idea, but instead of the sun center, I would use scoring lines of the bread to kind of give a combination of both meanings. Concept 2, as I mentioned, is a very literal take on the word rise, in which it is, well, bread. It's an app about bread, making bread techniques, bread tools, etc. But I played with the idea of incorporating those elements directly into the type, and I believe, despite the literalness, these wordmark logos came out to be much stronger than my abstract concept. I'll admit I'm still struggling trying to narrow down the strongest composition to pursue, so if you guys have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear them. Even if it's an idea for an awesome bread pun, because I love them, and it suits the brand. Thanks for watching and have a great day.